Hi, I'm Kristen Connolly. I'm the elected clerk recorder and registrar of voters here in Contra Costa County. Over the next 2 months, high school students will be interviewing elected officials of their choice to learn more about their work. We hope you will enjoy this series we're calling Democracy Dialogues.
Hello and welcome to another Democracy Dialogue. My name is Casey Shiner and I'm a senior at Miramani High School. Today, it is my honor to be talking to a huge figure in Bay Area government. West County Wastewater District President, Cheryl Sudduth. Elected to the board in 2018, she's brought extensive private sector experience to this extremely important, even essential community job. President Sudduth, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
To start, can you tell us a little bit about your job?
So, as a board director, a lot of what we do is making sure that we govern properly. We do a lot of fiscal management, and a lot has to do with the environmental aspect of the community. Wastewater management and water is one of those unseen things in the community. You don't know we're there until there's an issue. So right now, the major part of what we do is we are doing a lot of infrastructure rebuild. I spend a lot of time on the Finance and Administration Committee and overseeing our infrastructure rebuild. We have a $90 million project working right now. It's one of a kind in the United States, where we'll be redoing the way we recapture water. And I never like to say wastewater, because we don't waste water. We take in and we recycle the way the water is being done. We have a project that we're working on right now with Supervisor John Joya, where we'll be redoing the Richmond Levee project. So we'll have a living levee that will be going through right behind our wastewater facility. So we'll be restructuring that. A lot of what we do as board directors is really making sure that we're good stewards of the public money and governing from that aspect. So it's a lot of public policy, a lot of finding money for the projects that we need to get done. I spend a lot of time going back and forth to DC and Los Angeles and Sacramento, just studying a lot on policy work, advocating for the community, advocating for different bills that affect the work that we do, and spending time doing environmental work. Currently, I also serve as the Northern California Vice Chair for the Environmental Caucus.
I'm sure, yeah, and you obviously have a unique background in that you are now a public servant, elected official, but with that background in science. So how do you kind of balance those two roles, almost as a scientist and a policymaker?
Being a scientist, as a biochemist, but also as a molecular cell biologist, it helps me understand a lot of the technical aspects of what we do, but it also gives me a different perspective. A lot of times when people come into elected roles, right, they come into elected roles not being able to understand the intricacies of the work that they do. And so for me, it allows me to read some of the papers. Sometimes you get 300-400 page documents before a meeting, and you'll get them on Thursday night or Friday for a Tuesday or Wednesday meeting. So being able to look at that, but it also gives me an appreciation for how the public sometimes can be daunted by phraseology like, environmental justice or climate change, and not understand what's going underneath that. So being able, as a scientist, to look at it and break it down into very understandable words, and to be able to give that back to the public so that they can understand it from just an everyday language standpoint is very important, and it's something that I'm very easy to do.
Mm-hmm. And I love that and how you've really found those spots in your job that you can really help out at. So going back to the very start, when you first took office, what really surprised you the most about that role that you've now grown to understand?
What surprised me was, when you're campaigning, it always seems like it's the easy thing to do, right? He's like, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do A, B, C. And then you get into office and you're like, oh, it's not so easy, right? I remember the first vote we had on doing some work, and I was outvoted like several times, and I'm just thinking, this isn't work. This is not working. And I was just so surprised because I was looking at myself as such a leader. And I will say to everyone, anyone who's running for office or who wants to be in office, one of the things you learn very early on is that campaigning is different from governance, right? And being able to really look at what it takes to govern, the word that many people look at as a bad word like compromise, right? And compromise is not a bad thing, it's just that it's how you do it. You don't have to compromise your values, but you do have to learn how to collaborate and coordinate in the middle of compromise. How do we get to a solution together? So there was, Mayor Willie Brown is someone that I talk to a lot when I need advice. And one of the things he reminded me of is, when you have 5 people, you have to learn to count to 3. And when I wasn't learning to count to 3 is when I was losing votes to get to where we wanted to get to in order to govern. So the surprising thing to me was, idealism does not get you solutions. What gets you solutions is the ability to sit down, drill down on what it is we're trying to accomplish, and then you have to convince people that the way you're trying to get things done, the governance that you're trying to get done for the people is not steeped in idealism, but it's steeped in the details. So I had to be able to break those details down and then count to 3. So that simple math we learned in kindergarten still pays attention when you become an elected official. So going back to that's surprising detail. Even though people tell you, it doesn't hit until you sit on the dice.
Well, yeah, and it sounds like you've had a lot of growth in that compromise field, like over the last few years, really learning how that works. And I'm sure one big time for that was the pandemic. So like, how has your job evolved almost from before the pandemic to after the pandemic? And then also, what was it like during the pandemic, given obviously the large role of water and wastewater in the pandemic situation?
Yes, so, prior to the pandemic, we all met in person. And it was so much easier when you meet in person to have those discussions. When you're on Zoom, it's harder to grasp people's emotions, but it's also easier for people to hide behind decisions. But it was also easier during the pandemic for people to participate, the public to participate in discussions, and people to let their feelings be known. I think that because so many people were at home, the need for water, the need for clean septic systems, the need for for access to clean fresh water, clean fresh septic wastewater systems was much more evident and prevalent. Things that they didn't realize, that if I needed to wash my dishes and wash my clothes and run my sink more, all of those things became a reality to people who were taking it for granted before the pandemic, because now I'm home 24/7, right? And if your shower had a funny smell, now all of a sudden, wait, where did this come from, and who do I call? So the unseen, unheard heroes became the water and wastewater people. So that afterwards, we made concerted efforts to make sure that the public knew exactly where this was coming from. And our guys in hip boots, our ladies in hip boots, now they understand their work.
So have you seen that like an uptick in awareness of your job and the jobs of all the people who work in the district as a result of the pandemic? We've
seen more interest. We've seen people really taking more interest in, especially water and wastewater management, in understanding. And quite frankly, we saw systems fail especially back east. You've seen really strong in Michigan, in Mississippi, in Alabama, in Georgia, in places like that. You've seen systems fail. And when you see systems fail, the first thing is the community says, will this happen to us? And because of that, people started getting really interested in, well, tell me more, and tell me, how will this affect us, right? And everyone's interest in the environment really took a higher level in the last few years anyway, but during the pandemic, it was really heightened. So afterwards, that continued. So our role is to continue to make sure that we're educating people. I'm also in water education for Latino leaders, and we took extreme interest during the pandemic and post-pandemic of continuing making sure that we're educating people on the importance of water and wastewater, and making sure that we're bringing people into that, not just educating, but bringing people into the careers in water and wastewater, because it's very important. You can live with a lot of things, but you can't live without that.
And so what do those awareness campaigns really look like in terms of how you guys are spreading that awareness all around the county?
Yes, so actually this week, on Sunday, one of the biggest ones that's coming up is we have the El Sobrante Stroll. So we'll be out, but we spend a lot of time going to schools, we have a partnership with our community colleges. We have internship programs, and not just West County Wastewater, many of them. We have Central Sands, we have quite a few in Contra Costa that all of our partners do the same thing. We have internship programs. We go to a lot of schools. We run our own media campaigns. We have social media campaigns, and we do a lot of cross campaigns with one another. We have a lot of conferences where we speak on, so you want to be an attorney? You know you can be an attorney at the water district and at the wastewater district. You want to be an accountant? You can be an accountant in water and wastewater. Engineer, you want to be an engineer. So we speak to a lot of students and people, even mid-career, about the different opportunities.
Okay, that's great. And so to conclude with one more question, like if people saw your awareness campaign and said, hey, I want to make a difference, like what would be the best ways that our community can support those efforts in the wastewater district?
So I think the best way is, well, first they can go to, you can go to the website for West County Wastewater, which is wcwd.org. But the other way is making sure that my favorite way is do not flush anything down your toilet or your sink that is not water, number one, and in your toilet that is not, there's 3 P's, but I'm gonna tell you 2. There's 3 P's. Usually it's pee, poop, and paper. But I will tell you, you can even leave out the paper, because paper can go in the trash. You don't know what's happening in your systems except for that. Like I said, the system itself, unless it fails, most of us don't know, right? But if you want to support having strong water access to water and wastewater, your community really needs you to make sure that you are paying attention to what you're putting down your sink and your septic systems, and that we are really protecting the one resource that all of us need to really survive. We can survive with a lot of things, but clean air and clean water, there's not one of them.
Absolutely. Well, once again, thank you so much for coming, President Sudduth. It's been an absolute treat to have you. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, you too. Thank you so much.